Hello and welcome to the series of lectures on Content 1. This is the second mini lecture about teaching receptive skills. Receptive skills, also known as passive skills or reading and listening, are often contrasted with productive skills, which are speaking and writing. When learning a new language, learners tend to develop their receptive skills first and then acquire productive capability. It is a complex relationship between the two, as they all play a supporting role with developing other skills. For example, reading skills can be a supporting factor to the development of writing, whereas listening can improve speaking fluency. The key difference between listening and reading is that when learners listen to information, they have much less support than when they are working with the written word on the page. Listening requires real-time processing of language, and once the message has finished, there is no easy way to go back and check for meaning as there is during reading. Within the scope of the mini lecture, we are going to focus on specialist skills that teachers should develop for students in reading and listening lessons, potential problems which need to be addressed in teaching and learning of receptive skills, and some basic keys to successful receptive skill lessons. So, we can see that reading and listening are not simply matters for the eyes and the ears, but also a matter of using your minds to literally understand words and process them in our pre-existing knowledge to gain true understanding. Readers and listeners employ a number of specialist skills when reading or listening, and their understanding of the context will depend on the expertise in these areas. Predictive skills, for example, predicting the content of an article or dialogue from a headline or introduction. Specific information, scanning. We often listen or read for specific information. For example, we look in a newspaper to find a football result. We don't read the whole newspaper before finding it. We listen to the news only concentrating when a particular story comes up. General idea, skimming. This is where we read or listen for the gist of a text or dialogue. We don't focus on every single word, but are just trying to get a general understanding of the content. Detailed information. Sometimes we read in order to understand everything in detail. For example, when reading or listening to detailed directions on how to get to somewhere, we need to read or listen in a concentrated manner to gain full benefit. Deduction from the context. Sometimes we need to be able to understand and deduce the meaning of individual words or phrases from the context in which we hear or read them. We sometimes also need to see beyond the literal meaning of the words. "You are in a non-smoking zone" isn't intended solely for information, but also as an order to not smoke, and if you are smoking, to extinguish your cigarette. Make sure that we, as teachers, design suitable activities to develop the 5 specialist skills for students in reading and listening lessons. The teaching and learning of receptive skills presents quite a number of potential problems which need to be addressed. These are mainly in connection with the language contained in the text, the topic, and the tasks the students will perform. Language, sentence length, word length, and a number of unfamiliar words can also present problems to learners of English. Reading presents fewer problems as the text is captured on paper and students may read it countless times. This gives them the opportunity to think about it and reduce the difficult language from the context. Listening is another matter. The language isn't captured and listeners have no time to really deduce the meaning and think about the language as they hear it only once. Obviously, the more language we expose the students to, the more they will learn. Pre-teaching vocabulary. One way of helping students is to teach them difficult or unknown language and structures prior to commencing a reading or listening activity. This should at least help to remove some of the obstacles that they are likely to come across. However, if students never get past the stage of having to understand each and every word, they will never really feel comfortable with the receptive skills. Learning to understand the text without knowing every word is a skill that we should also encourage in our students. So, some kind of balance needs to be struck between pre-teaching structures and letting students access unknown language. A sensible solution would be to only pre-teach the words that are essential to understanding and leaving other vocabulary work until later. Careful selection of text. If the teacher is careful as to the listening and reading materials presented to the students, he or she can expose the students to a variety of authentic and non-authentic texts. Non-authentic texts will allow students access to material that contains language more suited to the student's ability, whereas authentic texts will expose students to texts that should give them confidence in their skills. Authentic materials and the tasks that go along with them must be carefully selected so as to focus on what the students know rather than how much they don't know. Topics. The topic of the text or dialogue can also help to motivate the students. If the topic is not interesting, it is less likely that the students will really engage with the material. Therefore, we really need to think about how we choose the topics and the tasks that go with them. Knowing our students and what really interested them is vital here. Obviously, individual students have individual interests, and a topic may interest some of the class but not the others. A variety of topics over a period of time is needed to ensure that all of our students are equally catered for in the end. Do not assume that because a topic interests you will be of equal interest to your students. Get to know them and their interests. It will assist you greatly in selecting suitable material. Create interest. If a teacher can get the students motivated and engaged in the task, there is a much greater possibility that they will read and listen with real enthusiasm, whether or not they were originally interested in the topic. We can get students engaged by discussing the topic, showing pictures, predicting what the text will be about, and other engaged phase activities. Task. An important feature in the teaching of receptive skills concerns comprehension tasks. We need to provide comprehension tasks that promote understanding as opposed to just checking understanding. A good task shouldn't be too easy or too difficult. In other words, a challenge that is realistically achievable. A quite common activity is jigsaw reading, where students are placed in pairs and each reads part of the text. Then they share their information to complete other tasks. There are several stages that teachers should follow to have a successful reading and listening lesson. 1. Pre-teach vocabulary. Make sure you check vocabulary that you predict students will need to navigate the reading or listening material they will work with. 2. Just reading or listening. When students have demonstrated their understanding of target vocabulary, set a quick skimming task for students to get a first contact with the text or recording. GIST tasks can be in the form of true-false questions, paragraph matching, ordering, or adding headings. Make sure that you go through the task before you give them the reading text. If they don't understand the task information, they will not be able to read or listen with purpose. 3. Detailed reading or listening. When students have got the gist of the text, they can move into some more detailed comprehension or language work. Set questions which deal with the relationships between points in the text, or which focus on use of specific language in the text or recording. This encourages a closer analysis of the information being presented. 4. Respond to text. This is optional. A follow-up stage which asks students to respond to what they have read or listened to can consolidate the ideas presented in the text and engage students with the content they have read or listened to. 5. Vocabulary in context. This is also optional. Another option for a post-reading stage is to examine the meanings of some other vocabulary items in the context of the sentences and paragraphs where they appear in the reading or listening material. Besides, staging is also important to develop strategies rather than only practicing skills, as you want to equip your students to practice outside the classroom. This is the end of the second mini lecture. Thank you for listening.